But actually, this is a practice that's been a large part of your life for quite a long time, actually. And so we're going to have a little bit of a chat about how fasting, the practice of fasting, has been a practice for you in your life over a little while. But before we dig into that, maybe tell all of us a little bit about your life, and what does life look like for you outside of Sunday morning?
Okay, well, you stole my first line. I'm James's wife. As work-life-wise, I'm an occupational therapist. I work full-time at Stoke Mandeville Hospital, specialising in hand therapy. So that's kind of my day-to-day work life, and I run a business as well to do with hand therapy. I love hand therapy. And then outside of that, I really enjoy walking and swimming, just staying active in general, and crafty things as well. What else? Well, we have a couple of pets, a cat and a guinea pig. And beyond that, I've been at Southcourt since 2017, since we got married. And I'm much more comfortable over there than I am here.
Brilliant. So that's a bit of life outside of Sunday morning, gives people a bit of a window into life, because we've probably only ever seen you, obviously, here on Sunday morning, behind the keyboard and singing. But in the interest of this practice of fasting, which is an interesting practice, and we're going to look at it in some detail this morning, what first drew you to the practice of fasting?
I lost my mum. She passed away in 2019 to cancer, and it was a really hard time. She has always been a massive support in my life, and the grief was huge. And I started to really struggle to cope with that. And a couple of years ago, I started some counselling, and I just really wanted to get as much healing as I could through the counselling. So I knew about fasting, but I'd never actually tried it, and I just wanted to be as close to God as I could, and decided that maybe this was a way on my counselling days to just draw closer to God and hopefully access a bit of the healing that he had for me. So I started fasting a couple of years ago on my counselling days, and then it's just kind of carried on ever since. As I say, I read a lot about it in the Bible, and I knew about it. I just didn't really think about it for my own life until then. That's kind of how it started.
Cool. And so you've been doing it actually for quite a while. We were talking about this, and it's longer than I realised. And how long has it been a practice for you now, like in general terms? How long has it been something that you've been doing?
Probably a couple of years. So not forever, but a couple of years. Before that, I never had fasted, at least intentionally anyway. And I still don't necessarily find it enjoyable. It's still a sacrifice. But I also know that I wouldn't now be without it. And I can't really describe it. It's kind of like my body prays where my words don't and my spirit doesn't. It's like a body prayer thing. And I kind of know that I can't replicate that in any other way. So, yeah.
Great. A couple of years is an interesting time to have done it, because you've kind of been through a journey of it, especially that initial phase, which is just a bit hungry and a bit annoying and all of that. And so doing it for a couple of years, what does it look like for you now in terms of your practice of fasting?
So I work a bit flexibly. I'm full-time, but I condense my hours, and it means that on a Friday I have a half day. So I use that as my fasting day. So every week on a Friday, and practically I eat dinner on the Thursday night and then don't eat dinner again until the Friday. So it's 24 hours really-ish. And I've kind of built that up. I used to really struggle with it, so I would just do kind of breakfast and lunch, and then around 2-3 o'clock I'd break my fast, or after my counselling session. But I've built that up now, and it's not as hard as it was, so it does definitely get easier. If I try and just stick to water, sometimes I will have coffee or tea, but I'll just keep it black. I love thing, I suppose. Obviously, it often comes with headaches. I often feel quite weak or tired. But strangely, I've also noticed, which I didn't expect, I have a kind of clarity of my thinking, and I don't know why that is. Maybe it's my body's not trying to digest, so my brain's working better. I don't know what it is, but I have noticed that I think better on a Friday. And it's actually been really lovely the past couple of months. There's a group of us that do it together and break it together. And there's something really nice about doing it in community. I think when I first started, I was really conscious of not telling anyone and not letting anyone know. Some of you may know about that verse in Matthew 6:16, and it says, "When you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others they are fasting. Truly I tell you, they've received their reward in full." And I used to think that meant that nobody could know. But actually, the more I read into fasting and looked in the Bible, there's so many examples of people doing it in a group and doing it together. And actually, there's something really powerful about that, I think. So yeah, I'm not broadcasting it, although I kind of am right now. But in work, no one other than someone else that knows. It's not like I'm announcing it, but I'm not hiding it as well. So that's been a bit of a freedom for me as well recently.
That's really helpful, practical insight for us to see what it might look like in obviously how it looks in your life, but how it might be able to play out in our own lives as well. And I guess if you had to summarize it all and say, what impact has it had on your life to finish?
That's a really hard one. I think there's probably things, I've obviously mentioned the counselling and my grief journey a bit, but I trust God and I know that I've had healing that I wouldn't have had, I think, just because I wouldn't have quite been so desperate for him or showing that desperation for him. So I can't put into words, but that would be one way. I think, I pray every day in the morning when I'm spending some time with God. I pray that he'd give me my daily bread, and that really means something different on a day when I'm fasting. And from a kind of personal point of view, I think I'm a bit more disciplined, and that's never a bad thing. I know now that I'm not subject to my immediate desires all the time. You have to squash down the feeling of wanting to eat, which isn't easy for me. So yeah, I'm more aware that my desires don't control me. And then I think there's always going to be a bit of mixed motives with fasting. When I was reading more around it, it's a big thing in the health world at the moment. Some of you may know about diabetes and cancer, and there's loads of research coming out about how fasting is really good for your body in general, almost like we're made to do it, right? Yeah, it's hard not to have mixed motives. I have a chronic illness, and it's hard not to have mixed motives from that point of view as well. But yeah, I think it's had a massive impact on my life, and probably one I can't really put into words, but you'll do better at that in a minute.
Maybe, we'll see. Amazing, thank you. Let's give Chloe a round of applause.